Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Bragg, and welcome to Bragging Rights, where I have some awesome people come on and join me and talk about their successes, their ambition. How do we cheer each other on, and how do we celebrate other people's successes? Because I have always been so frustrated that we always talk about our failures and we don't talk about our success. And so that's what I want all of us to do is not put success in the spotlight, but that success should be all the time that we're talking about it and that we're sharing each other's accomplishments, because that's how we all grow, is not just hearing from failures, which are important, but really hearing about, hey, this is how I did it and this is how you can do it too, through story. So today I have someone awesome on the show. It's Dr. Andrea Wojnicki, and she is actually in my Bragging Rights book. She is an expert, and she'll talk maybe about the H-bomb of Harvard, which is also in my book, but she went to Harvard and studied really thinking about communication and how do we to communicate with each other to be effective. And that's what she teaches too. So why don't I bring her on and we can have her. And again, I'm still learning this eCam. So yeah, here we go. There she is. Yay.
Hi.
Hi. So we'd like you to join in if you have any questions or comments about, executive coaching with Andrea, how to communicate. She's going to help me communicate today because I feel like I'm all tongue-tied. And so she'll join us today, and so she'll answer your questions live. And if you want to add anything into the comments, you can add them there too. It's one of those days for me, Andrea, where I had to wear something bright and I had to go around and open all the windows, and I had to make sure I was upstairs when I did this recording because I was feeling it. I don't know if you've been feeling the heaviness of the days lately. We're in Canada, both of us, not too far away from each other, and it's February.
I was having this conversation this morning with one of my clients, and even those of us who aren't diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder, there is definitely something going on with fewer sunlight hours during the day, and it affects us. And we're not going outside because it's icky out there. It's cold. So I have to say also, I love what you're wearing. I'm actually writing a script right now, or an outline for a podcast episode on what to wear at work. And you nailed it. You've
Oh,
got blue, it's solid, it's V-neck, you got the background nicely curated. It also happens to be my favorite color.
oh, I think,
Turquoise.
are we matching?
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
matching. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. I needed the punch of color, and I even went for like something with 80s shoulder pads in it. So I think
Gorgeous.
I just needed the day for sure. And I have some funky flowers. I don't know if you can see it in the two shot, but I'll do the solo shot for a second. And you can see my new flowers. They're flowers, felt flowers, and they are um, the colors of my book. So I'm starting
Beautiful.
a book.
Brilliant.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's really good. Andrea, you are the master, the queen, whatever you want to say, of introducing yourself. So I felt like I didn't do a great job. And I'm going to put you on the spot. You have a Harvard Business Review article of how to really talk about yourself and introduce yourself quickly. So why don't you do me the pleasure, the honor of introducing yourself properly so people can hear what that sounds like.
Okay, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to tell people what I did with the introduction. So I'll reverse engineer it. Okay. Hi, my name is Dr. Andrea Wojnicki. Please call me Andrea, and I'm an executive communication coach. My company is called Talk About Talk, and I coach ambitious executives all over the world through workshops and one-on-one coaching to elevate their communication, their confidence, and their executive presence. And in the past, I did my doctorate at Harvard Business School, where I studied interpersonal communication. I also worked on the faculty at the University of Toronto in marketing at the Rotman School of Management. And I've worked as a brand management consultant and a brand manager, and I've been on some boards. And I am so excited to be here, Lisa, honestly, to talk with you for the next hour about communication and personal branding and bragging rights. And I love the synergies that we have. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Okay,
Okay.
let's all that magic in
Yeah.
there. Lots of magic. So just break it down a little bit for us so that we can say, "Oh, that's how you do it. That's very good." Okay.
Yeah. So I track on a weekly basis the downloads for my podcast. I have a podcast called Talk About Talk, and one of the episodes every week was getting higher, even many weeks after it was released, kept growing in terms of downloads, and it's called How to Introduce Yourself. And so I thought there's something to this framework that I created. I think I want to publish it so that I own the copyright. So I submitted it to Harvard Business Review and they published it. So it's a simple 3-point framework for introducing yourself. And the reason it works so well is really two things. It's only 3 points, and it's totally customizable. So you can use this for personal, for professional, any situation that you think of, online, offline. The 3 steps to introducing yourself are this: present, past, future. So it's like present tense. I am. Hi, my name is. I am. Right. Past is where professionally we can add credibility, right? Or if maybe it's a personal context, you meeting a new neighbor, you could say, we've lived here for 15 years. So it's past tense, it's where you establish credibility. And then future. And here's where the icing on the cake happens, because most people, they kind of talk about, they go through a chronology of, this is what you need to know about me in order of past to present. And then they go, yeah, that's me. So if you want to end your self-introduction with some eloquence and hand it off to the next person, say something that is future oriented, that's positive and enthusiastic. There's tons of research out there that shows that enthusiasm wins. So with your words and with your body language, you could say something like, I'm really excited about whatever, or I'm looking forward to working with you all on this, right? So it's something that's immediate in the future, and you're talking about your enthusiasm for it. Um, the only catch with this framework, and once you know this, you'll never forget it again, is it's not chronological. It's not past, present, future, which is what most people might fall into. It's you start with the present, then you go back to the past, you establish credibility, and then you talk to the future. And it helps a lot of people. I hear from people. I have a friend, Jill Nicolation. She's the CEO of Juniper Park TBWA, the agency here in Toronto, and she told me that she listened to that podcast episode, and then she was going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and she went into a meeting, and she was a couple minutes late, and they said, "Oh, there's Jill. Jill, why don't you introduce yourself?" And she was like, "Ah!" And then she thought, present, past, future, bam. So it helps a
Yeah.
lot.
It does help a lot. And I've used it, and with credit to you and your Harvard Business Review article saying, hey, go check this out. But I've used it too in some of my sessions, and people are like, wow, because I've always been against the elevator pitch. It just,
Oh,
we're humans having a human conversation. And so when I'm pitching to you, it's too much, and it's all about me selling to you, when really we're trying to do is have a conversation. Let me tell you a little bit, so then I can tell you a story, so then we can have a conversation and then have a relationship. And that's where we want to move it from that networking to connection to relationship. What do you think of what I just said?
Lisa, my brain's exploding. This happens every time we talk. I I can't believe this. I just wrote an article called Drop the Elevator Pitch.
We need it. We need that article.
Yeah,
Awesome. Great.
yeah.
Where is it going to be out? What is that, another?
We'll see. To be
Okay.
determined. To
Okay,
be determined.
come back and put it here. I just want to thank everyone for coming in and watching the show. We have Roslyn who works with me. Thank you for joining, Roslyn. I really, really appreciate you. Sarah, thank you for joining and coming along. If you have any questions, Sarah, let us know. I'm so glad you're excited to hear from Andrea today. And Rabia, I have referred to that framework by Dr. Andrea since I read about it. It is super effective. It simply works and can be customized according to your situation. It totally can. So,
Yeah,
no matter where you are, if you're there representing who you volunteer for, you can put that in with adding in your credibility. You can tee up an article, a book, or whatever it is that you're doing in the future. It
yeah,
allows people to start future casting you. And that's why I
yeah.
think, any of the professional personal branding that we're doing, it's about the future you're signaling where you want to go. And so that's the brilliance of the simplicity of Andrea's method, is really talking about that future you, so then they can say, oh, I didn't know, I can lean into that.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
Roslyn, enthusiasm wins. Love that tip to wrap up an introduction. Yeah, being enthusiastic. It's a simple thing, but so many people are just so.
Mhm. Yeah. So I talk with my clients a lot about enthusiasm. I interviewed this amazing faculty member. Her name's Dr. Tatiana Astray, and she did her dissertation on the effect of various emotions on negotiations. Long story short, one of the insights that she shared with me that I then have kind of looked online for other contexts, which rings true. And once you know this, it becomes like a secret weapon, is that enthusiasm wins. It wins in negotiations, it wins in sales contexts, it wins in project management, it wins in job applications. The candidate or the person or the negotiator or the salesperson who is communicating enthusiasm, of course, it has to be real enthusiasm, but if you're holding back on your enthusiasm because you're worried that you're not going to seem professional or something, don't hold back. Enthusiasm will help you. So if you're like me and you write an email and there's all these exclamation marks and it's like a little over the top, so there is a fine line. But most of us, including myself, I'm very conscious of being too enthusiastic maybe. But once I read this research, I was like, oh, you know what, it's okay. It's, in fact, it will help me.
I've been accused of being passionate. So accused is
Ah,
a strong word.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I just said, you know what? No one else is going to be passionate about my life. And if I'm
yeah,
passionate about something, I'm all in and I want to support it and I want it to grow. So no one's going to be passionate about my life except for me and what I'm doing. So I might as well, take that on and let that accusation grow and be passionate and be
yeah,
enthusiastic. So I mean,
yeah,
for me, they grow together.
yeah,
You're passionate, so then you'll be more enthusiastic and back and forth. So, and audience, if you want any questions asked from Andrea as she drops all these nuggets of gems of smarts and intelligence and
yeah.
tips you can use, I'm just going to keep flattering you because I just
Yeah.
love our conversations. Did also drop that we had a podcast episode together. So if you want to hear more and hear Andrea guide the conversation, 105 bragging self promotion of her talk about talk. And we'll put her website in the chat later. And we'll also include it in the show notes. But it's talkabouttalk.com. So it's easy enough for you to find
Yeah.
and join us there. But when you put in, I ask everyone who joins the show to say, what are you thinking about lately? Instead of just rehashing what we've already talked about and what we know
Yeah.
what we're passionate about. So I wanted to know what it was that you're passionate about. And you said that you're concerned about this backlash against personal branding. Tell me about that.
So this has been bubbling up in my universe for many, many months. And just a couple of days ago, I read a Wall Street Journal article. Was it Wall Street Journal? Hang on. Sorry, my bad. It was New York Times. New York Times article. I posted it on my LinkedIn. You'll see it there. Um, Basically saying that accusing the personal branding development world of causing all evils. And I read the article and I was like, oh my goodness. Like I actually emailed the author. And so let me back up a second here. In my coaching world, when I first became a communication coach, I thought that I would be focusing with my clients mostly on topics like confidence, listening, storytelling, demonstrating leadership, preparing for formal presentations and keynotes, that kind of thing. And then this personal branding thing started to come into my universe, and it made sense because of my background in marketing and branding and interpersonal communication. Like, right, it's right at the intersection there. And then I noticed a couple things. First of all, when my clients were working in a disciplined way on establishing and articulating their personal brand, they experienced bigger epiphanies or transformations than any other topic we talked about. A close second would probably be confidence, but interestingly, developing your personal brand builds your confidence. So I noticed that there were all of these epiphanies happening, and people were emailing me after we were done the coaching and saying that was like, the way more impactful than I thought it would be. I'm still thinking about it all the time. So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing that I noticed was when I was coaching people who work for big companies who typically would pay for the coaching, and I would write a proposal to their manager and say, I met with, my your subordinate and they want to work on, they're really committed to self-improvement and they want to work on their communication skills, including these topics, and personal branding was one of them. Very often I would get an email back saying, great, I'll sign off on it, just no personal branding.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. It
wow.
happened. It happened like 3 or 4 times in 6 months. I was like, "What?"
Ah,
Yeah,
huh. And I wonder if it's the personal branding is because they think that people are then wanting to jump off and be influencers. Because that's what I get.
yeah.
There was an incident in Canada where somebody, their personal brand was the downfall of them in a way because, well, no. I'm going to back that up. It was that it conflicted with their professional brand, what they were bringing to work, and that they had a side hustle. And then when it conflicted, then she realized that she was no longer wanting to do the job she was hired for. And so she left to become a professional influencer, paid influencer. So I don't think that's the downfall of her. I think that's the finding my own path of her. So
Exactly,
that's really,
exactly.
but I think a lot of people think personal brand equals influencer
Yep,
in the, lifestyle brand,
yeah,
photography, that area instead
yep,
of, so that's why I try to differentiate it by calling it professional branding so that it's talking about you as the professional on the stage and or in your world of work, and how you want to show up is essentially what I talk about. And so
yeah.
that's tiny nuance of the language, I think, makes a difference. But the fact that they said no personal branding, I wonder if they were worried about the person being too successful and looking too good that they'd walk away.
I'm quite certain that that's exactly what they were thinking. Yeah, yeah. So a couple thoughts. Last year, Masterclass published an online course called Personal Branding, hosted by Chris Jenner. And I was like, oh, I cannot wait to take this course. And she spends, I don't know how many hours total it is. For argument's sake, call it 5 hours. She probably spends 20 to 25% on what I do over like a minimum of 4 coaching sessions, right? Focusing on articulating someone's personal brand. And then she gets right into the social media influencer, right? So how to, like, what hashtags to use, what platform should you be on, and all this. So I was like, okay, so the difference between me and her in thinking of this in a disciplined, strategic way is, in my world, and I guess in your world, Lisa, that when you talk about professional identity, it's articulating the positive and unique things about you, that creating your narrative, right? So what are the themes is what I say to my clients. It's like, what are the themes roughly in order of priority that you want to share with the world and to internalize yourself, right? So, and articulating them, that's step 1. And then step 2 is communicating them. And some of that might be online, but it's in everything you do.
Everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's, Chris Jenner, the interesting thing though, it's so many young people, and I'm sure lots of older people too, they want to be professional influencers because they see it as a career path when
Yep.
there's lots of articles popping up about it. But yes, you might have one $40,000 month and then never do anything again. That seems to be the life of most
Uh,
influencers, where there really isn't a long-term strategy. So people do want that as a career. So the Chris Jenner advice might be really interesting to that segment. But a lot of us, though, that's not what we're looking for. We want to have influence in the world, and we want our ideas to spread, but we're not looking for that to be our bread and butter. We're looking for something bigger and beyond that, that's beyond social media too, that can go deep. It can be speaking to an audience of one entirely. Judith joins us and says, knowing your personal brand also clarifies the direction, and she put that in all caps, you take in your career and accelerates progress. Absolutely agree with that, Judith. Thank you for
yeah.
that comment, because you then clarify through different exercises, alone or with a coach, where you want to go and why you want to do that. Because so often people just think,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to go there. Or, when I signed up to the world of work, I wanted to do X. But then our paths move along so much. So it's great to have that time of, you know, consideration for who you are today and who
Yeah.
you want to be tomorrow. So anyone else, if you want to add a comment or question that Andrea can answer, I can help answer too, and you're watching us live, please join the show now and leave something in the comments, and we'll will add to it or respond to your question. And if you're living, there's a new word. If you're watching the
Yeah,
replay,
it's going to be a word, Lisa.
live.
It's going to be,
Yeah, well, we're tired of
we're
Zoom.
living.
And why are we producing all these content saying we're always on Zoom? If you are living, if you're watching the replay, put a comment there, and Andrea and I will come back to it and respond to you then. And
Yeah,
maybe it will be a new
happy to.
word, living. I feel really
Can I elaborate a little bit on Judith's comment about illuminating the future? I love that point. I actually have three benefits that I've articulated for the individual to that they will experience when they articulate their personal brand in this disciplined way. So we've talked about the three of them now, right? So it's you create your narrative, you get a confidence boost, and it illuminates your future. And I just, in terms of that point of illuminating your future, I don't think a lot of people think about this when they think about their personal brand. It's more like just so that I have kind of control of my narrative, right? I've I have two stories of people that I know that after they worked on establishing and really articulating what their personal brand is, they found themselves in situations where they were like, yeah, I can confidently say no to that opportunity because I know I'm going to be happiest and most successful doing this other thing that's related to my superpower or my personal brand. So one was a guy that I was coaching. When I was done coaching him, he was in a job interview, and they started talking. It was for a CEO position, and he said, "Hang on a second. Do you need someone to keep the ship away from icebergs and islands? Like steer it clear, or are you looking to charter open waters?" And they were like, wow, amazing metaphor. Yeah, no, for the short term it's more about steering clear of icebergs. And he's like, I'm in the wrong room. I need to be charting open waters or I'm not going to be happy and I'm not going to be successful. And I was like, wow. And he goes, but I could say it so confidently because I know that's my brand, like that's who I am. Um and other individuals that I've talked to have had similar kind of epiphanies. A woman that I heard a couple years ago speaking at a women's leadership conference said that she was promoted to uh, global chief of staff to the CEO, which meant that she was going to be not establishing relationships with clients anymore. It would just be really a lot of one-on-one. Great learning opportunity, but she turned it down, and people thought she was crazy but she said, "No, I need to be client facing. That's my superpower." So you hear these stories, right, about people turning things down. At the same time, though, in terms of illuminating your future, when you've articulated your personal brand, you know who you are, you know what your superpowers are, you talk about these things all the time, and then you become the go-to. So internally in your organization and outside, people will be like, oh, they're talking about self-confidence and bragging. Lisa, that's Lisa, right? Like you will be top of mind because you've really leaned into your superpower. So yeah,
absolutely. We can always talk and talk and
I
talk.
know. I know.
Sarah, thanks for joining in. She says, great example for sure. It's when people know you are for that thing, and then they can say you're that. Because if we're for everything, then we're for nothing.
Yeah,
So there's so many of us. So really, it's, standing out and fitting in, but you have to know where you want to go with it and
yeah,
not say yes to everything because it just becomes exhausting when you
yeah.
say yes. And then you're trying to work hard here and do this thing. And then you're trying to work hard here and you're just following what everyone else wants and saying, instead of saying, here's my compass, my guiding star that I know where I'm going to go with it. And yes, you can change your mind along the way,
Yes.
but
Yes.
at least you have a path
Yes.
that people can say, aha, I know. And then I can also help you, right? Because, when you're doing things, I want to make sure I'm amplifying you and also talk about you when you're not in the room. So being that sponsor or champion of others is the critical thing. And if I know, because you've articulated it, because you're doing self promotion, then I can help you even more. So you have to know, first of all, and then you have to tell all of us about it. So
So
somebody,
Lisa, I
yeah,
want to point something out about what you just said there. So you are all this is getting meta. It always gets meta. You are establishing your personal brand as a generous thought leader, actually, just by acting as a sponsor for other people, right? That's why I can talk so openly with you. Like, we're in the same space, but we elevate each other, right? So, and I'm thinking part of Lisa's personal brand is that she's a giver, not a taker.
thank you. I do. So I
True.
thank you for all of that, but I want people to walk away with you should give, 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 take. So because we always so many of us we're culturally we're told to always give and always pass the mic, and sometimes you need when the mic comes by you need to claim it. As a former broadcast journalist, I think that one
Mm,
thing is that I would go up to so many people and I would always want to run away from the pack of journalists and find interesting different people, and I'd say, hey, I think you're the expert, come on and be on my TV, whatever I was doing. And they would say, who, me? No, go talk to someone down the hall who's already done media. And so I think I was always looking for that next person to have something different. It was selfish. It's selfish. I am so interested in what other people are saying and different
yeah.
people, but it's about when that mic comes to you and you haven't had it all the time, take the mic. Take the mic. And if you have it all the time,
Mm,
pass the mic to someone else who hasn't had it as often as you. So I think it's really important for us
beautiful. I love
share
that.
that, but always be generous and giving. I think so many people say to you, I'm sure they say it to you, and maybe with your Harvard Business Review, you gave away all of that IP. Weren't you worried about it?
Are you asking me that?
Well, that's
The-
what people say. We give
yeah,
away so much,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
find myself that it does come back to me. And then some things I give it away, and then some things are behind the curtain.
yeah,
So, how did you
yeah.
find with your what did you find with your Harvard Business Review article? Because I
So
know
one of
people
the
were taking it, didn't they?
one one of the yeah, so after I published the podcast, I did learn about some other coaches actually coaching it and not giving me credit, and I thought, "You know what? I developed this. This is my IP." So actually going to Harvard Business Review was the whole reason that I did that because the copyright is established there through them and me on the byline. So if anyone uses it, and that has happened actually a couple times since, um, Harvard will go after them.
Yeah. See,
So
and the way around it is we can use each other's content, and I'm happy to always share things
yeah,
too, but give the person credit. So I've used your work, but I'll say go check out the Harvard Business Review article for more of this and to see.
yeah,
And so that's where it's when you're not afraid. It's the abundance versus scarcity
yeah,
mindset, and
yeah,
also that it's collaboration
yeah,
over competition.
yeah.
And you've queued me up really well, set me up to talk about Andrea's in the book.
Yeah, yes.
Did. And it talks about the page she's on. We're talking about, that our businesses entirely overlap, but
Mhm.
our both of our frame of mind is that it is better for us to collaborate in any way we can than compete, because some people will love your style and some people will love my style, and some people might take from both. They're always looking for different coaches, different needs, different thinking, and so how can we help more people to get to the next level and stage? So you're in the book. Yeah. So we're collaborators. I can't speak today, but
Yeah,
and it talks about how we were on the podcast and have so much fun,
yeah.
and that we were both letting each other shine. And I think that's the thing about finding those people who are competitors you can collaborate with and do some awesome things with.
So, honestly, I just love talking with someone on the level that you and I talk, Lisa, where we get into these topics. Like right now, I'm thinking you and I should be collaborating on an article or a course or something related to generosity, give and take, and like IP. Like really, I mean, just think about that as a topic, right? Like wow, from the various perspectives that you and I have, the synergies would be amazing. And I think I know this is a cliche, but there are people who are close-minded who really think the size of the pie is the size of the pie, and the bigger their piece is, the smaller mine is. And I really I know you don't think that way. I can tell just by the way you communicate, right? And I definitely don't either. I think as you said, we elevate each other, and it's exciting.
We always need fuel for each other too, but I think it's also that we're signaling to other people, I'm at that stage now where I do have the belief in myself
Yeah.
that I am, the expert. I can talk about this,
Yeah.
that I'm not afraid. I'm
Yeah.
okay if we have a different opinion. I think that there's a lot that we're showcasing our knowledge together, and then it makes me look even better. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
shine brighter if I'm helping you shine, and back and forth. And so I think it just also shows the level that you're on the stage. Like you
Yeah.
have a Harvard Business Review article, which I do admire because I think that a lot of thought and consideration goes into the IP that goes into that magazine. So I think it's, that we're all sharing each other's knowledge just helps the next person. It's how do
Yeah.
we talk about success? We need
Yeah.
to share that
Yeah.
information. So,
And even you're reminding me of a conversation I had last week about this, that's very closely related. And it was about when a thought leader shines a light on someone else, it implicitly communicates confidence in whatever the topic is. So, a great example is Adam Grant. He regularly posts lists of books that he recommends. Uh, Yours may end up being on one of his lists, Lisa. It should. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because he writes, I mean, in my bookshelf behind me, I've got, I think, 3 or 4 of his books. And yet he's actively promoting other, like with links to Amazon, like go buy this book. And here's why I like it, right? And they often overlap with things that he is, coaching and people on. So, but to me, that just demonstrates that he's the go-to resource, right, for organizational behavior. It's incredible. So why shouldn't we be amplifying other people? And if you want to think about it selfishly, actually elevating other people will even make you look better if you want to think of it that way.
oh,
I know.
all in the book, all in my book too, because it's about amplification. And if you are afraid of talking about yourself, then that's the way to do it, is really shine the light on others. Somebody needs to curate all this great content that's out in the world and point a light and say, oh, I know somebody, that's Andrea, that's this person here, you should go to them. And then the love comes back to you even more so because
Yeah.
you've done that. So I think it's just really critical for all of us to do that. So you are in the book twice too. So you're there. I'm starting to forget. It's like I don't have the book in front of
It's
me.
the H bomb. The H bomb is the
The
second
H
one.
bomb. Yes, the H bomb. So, why don't you tell your story? Because you're right here in front of me, and because I have it as a quote in here, the H bomb, and that you avoid telling sometimes the story that you went to Harvard. Tell us about that.
So yeah, the students at Harvard, they do talk about how often things will change in terms of a dynamic, especially if obviously you haven't met someone before, and then you meet them briefly and they kind of whatever, they're construing their evaluation of you, as we all do. And then someone says, oh, and Andrea went to Harvard, or I say, well, when I was at Harvard, right? And then people, they will, and we had this experience once. We were on vacation and we met this family and we were kind of hanging out with them, and then they found out whatever, the Harvard bomb got dropped, and suddenly it was weird. They wanted to be best friends. It can have the opposite effect too, right? So the point is, we all have things about us that are impressive, maybe, or less impressive, and sometimes, particularly people who have that fixed pie mindset, they might think that if there's something about you that's impressive, it makes them less so, which is sad, but true. And I can think of actually some thought leaders who actively talk about Harvard, in a negative way, right? So what I very carefully think about, especially if I'm introducing myself using the 3-point self introduction framework, what elements I'm going to share about myself. I don't tell everyone that I was a faculty member at the University of Toronto and that I got my doctorate at Harvard where my research focused on whatever. I sometimes say I live in Toronto, I have 3 kids, they're all extremely tall, and I love painting, right? Like, it depends on the context, the person you're talking to. When I'm trying to establish professional credibility, for example, with someone at an HR department who's thinking about hiring someone to run workshops on communication skills, I absolutely will mention Harvard, but I'm very careful to do it in a way where I'm not focusing on it. It's not like, and you should like me because I went to Harvard. It's, I was a student at Harvard for 5 years, and then I divert attention away from it, where I focused my research on interpersonal communication. I did my dissertation on the self concept and word of mouth. So and then I talk about, like, I've always been obsessed with understanding why people say what they say. And in the back of their mind, they're probably thinking, did she say Harvard? Well, that's cool. Oh, and this is how her research set her up to become a coach, right? So I'm kind of diverting attention away from the H bomb. And then if they go, did you say Harvard? I'll say yes. And my goodness, it was amazing. I learned so much. It was such a privilege to be there, right? So you can say things like this in a way that are less edgy to some people.
Yeah, and you know what? We can't always be responsible for how people receive our information too. We can
Yeah.
say, you can try to soften it a little bit, but no matter what, some people will hear when like she's just no matter what over the top and talking about herself in a way that makes me feel smaller. But the reality is you can't be responsible for how people receive your success. And so it's a great thing to hang on things. Sarah's joining in and she says, I'm a mastermind facilitator, and my favorite part is ensuring people get equal time to give and receive. The diverse perspectives are the most innovative ideas are generated. You can read that comment in the LinkedIn chat because I'm drinking lemon water today, and I think that might be in like really I'm not able to speak today, and I have a communication right with me. So, it's one of those days. Just take a deep breath.
It's always meta. Lisa, you know what I share with people? Imagine, if you will, being a communication coach and having three teenagers that live with you constantly criticizing every word that comes out of your mouth. It is real, it's a real treat. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and we put so much pressure on ourselves in this world too. And I think that's another message I always want to get across is that, while we're in our heads and it's like, oh, I just stumbled on the word message. And like no one else is hearing these things that we do because the human
Mhm.
mind is just thinking about context and they're thinking about themselves and
Yep,
systems are moving within themselves and
yep,
all the things. And so we focus on these smallest things for so long and just
yep.
other people are on to the next thing and really mostly thinking about themselves too. So
It's true. It's not about, I guess, me, right? Like it's about you. It's not about me. It's about you. Always. Always. People, we have limited attention spans and limited attention ability, right? So I mean, I think that's really about being empathetic and being other oriented. That said, it's also another reason why developing your personal brand and really really honestly articulating it is so important because then you're creating the narrative that is focused, right? So it's, well, I learned all these things about this communication coach Andrea, she does this, she did this, whatever. So if you understand that I do coaching and workshops for ambitious executives, and my favorite topic is personal branding, then that's the narrowed message that I'm hoping people get, right? Um, by not focusing on what your personal brand is, people will be like, "Oh, she's that woman that was wearing the nice blue shirt," because they're not paying that much attention. They're just
no,
not.
no, they're not. There's so many things going on. And so if you
Yeah,
can be that signal and not part of the noise and tell people this is where I'm going and what I want to do, and then they'll know how to help you. And so I think that's exactly it. How, the backlash against personal branding is because people are doing it to sell something that maybe doesn't align necessarily, or they just want the fame factor. And I think both of
yeah,
us, what we talk about is a long game and it's
yeah,
not about becoming viral and getting something sold right away. It's a long game, all of these things, because you
yeah,
have a long career ahead of you. And
yeah,
so that's the difference, I think, now that we need to add to the language of what when we talk about ourselves and look to stand out, what does that mean? And so I think we'll see the lexicon, the language around self promotion, bragging grow as we grow. And in the book, I define it too. And I talk about what these things are because we've just been saying self promotion, oh, go talk about yourself, or bragging, which originally meant shine and shimmer. And now we've made it almost that it's self aggrandizement. And so
right.
really owning our vocabulary, but that it means like to talk about yourself with pride. And I believe, and I think you do too, that we need to have that pride as we go. So
100%, 100%. And I remind people that as we're creating or identifying the words and the phrases and the themes that you really want to hang your hat on in terms of your personal brand, they all have to be true. We are not manipulating people to believe things that aren't true. It's more like you're narrowing the focus on the things that are true, right?
yeah, it's about being who you are because it's hard to live up and show up in a different way when you've amplified yourself in, one way that you really aren't there. And then when you really feel, what a lot of people call the imposter syndrome, I call imposter experience because we all have it from time to time. But when
Yeah.
you've also gone so far one way of making yourself so big that you don't really fit the picture, then that's the challenge of it for sure. Okay, we're going to wrap up the conversation. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the chat and Andrea and I can and get to them. But Andrea, you have your podcast, you have a Harvard Business Review article, you publish other places. What else can we go and find more information about you? Where can we go?
So I'm I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I'd love to connect with anyone who's watching this on LinkedIn. But if you want to learn more about me, just go to talkabouttalk.com. I have an online course on personal branding. I would love it if you set up a 20-minute consult. I meet with people and I generously provide free advice. Like whatever questions you have, I will answer. It's not like, well, it's not a 20-minute sales job. It's a 20-minute coaching session. So if you want to do that, or you can email me. My email is Andrea@talkabouttalk.com.
Great.
Yeah.
And all those will be in the show notes too. So thank you for joining us. I will be back with another episode sometime soon where we're talking to awesome people like Andrea about all the things that they're doing and all the success they're having. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me. And especially as I learn all the technology and figure it.
Lisa, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I had fun. I'm sure you can tell my face hurts from smiling so much. I love, our energy and working off each other. And I honestly mean this. I cannot wait to read your book. I am so excited. I need an advance copy. I need to devour it.
Well, I will be looking for fans and super fans, people who are willing to help
That's
amplify.
me.
So I appreciate that. And we're going to put out a call to people. So if you're one of those people who'd like to help support the book in some way and help me spread it so that more people can really use the lessons in it, because it has so many things, simple things, and also things that take a little bit more time, but things that will really help you to stand out and fit in. So I truly appreciate that offer. And if you're interested to anyone who's watching, just send me a direct message or come to my website, lisabragg.com, and you can sign up there. But Andrea, I appreciate you so much and all you do. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Ditto. Thank you.
Okay, see you
Bye.
soon, everyone. Bye.